Welcome to this explainer. Today we are diving into the very heart of God by unpacking a text that completely redefines love. If you've ever looked around and felt like our modern definition of love is just, well, a bit too quiet when faced with deep human suffering, then this is absolutely for you. We're going to look at ancient wisdom to see how true compassion actually operates through the lens of kingdom ethics. It's not some passive emotion, it's a fierce, transformative force for justice. Let's get right into it. Okay, so right out of the gate, our source material shatters this modern illusion of passive love. Think about it. Today, we so often shrink love down, right? We reduce it to basic kindness, simple politeness, or this very quiet, private affection. We treat it like a feeling that happens exclusively behind closed doors. But the text challenges this head on. It points out that, sure, politeness is nice, but it is incredibly inadequate when faced with a world that's truly hurting. And that leaves us with a really stark contrast. On one hand, we have sentimental love, which is quiet, safe, and private. But biblical reality, it demands what we call covenantal love. Now, covenantal love is public. It's fiercely social. It inherently shapes exactly how a community treats the poor, the immigrant, the widow, and the marginalized. It's a love that rolls up its sleeves and actively defends those who literally cannot defend themselves. Which brings us to our first main section, Prophets of Systemic Justice. You see, this covenantal love is the ancient blueprint laid out by the historical Old Testament prophets, guys like Amos, Micah, Isaiah, and Jeremiah. They raised their voices because they looked around and saw a society completely failing to live up to the standard. Take Amos, for example. He wasn't just spouting beautiful poetry here. This was a divine demand. Let justice roll down like waters. He's telling a corrupt society that their systems must be completely washed over and rebuilt from the ground up, so the dignity of every single human being is recognized and protected. And then, right following Amos, we have Isaiah echoing this exact same rhythmic, unyielding call. Look at the action in his words. Learn, seek, correct, bring, plead. This is love in action. This is love with a spine. It's a love that flat out refuses to look away from suffering, demanding that we actively intervene for the fatherless and the widows, who were the absolute most vulnerable people in that ancient society. What's truly fascinating is just how specific these prophets were. Amos fiercely targeted economic exploitation. He condemned systems that allowed wealthy people to hoard resources while the poor literally starved in the streets. Isaiah, on the other hand, went straight after religious hypocrisy. He condemned the folks offering empty worship inside the temple while entirely ignoring systemic injustice right outside their doors. Both of them make it crystal clear. You simply cannot separate spiritual devotion from social justice. Moving right along to section 2, a love that disrupts. So, this brings us to a highly disruptive foundational truth. True love is rarely comfortable. God doesn't just arbitrarily play favorites. No, he inherently takes the side of the oppressed. Why is that? Because systemic exploitation, trampling the poor, and abusing power completely violate his character. It's not about loving one group more than another. It's about the undeniable fact that oppression is fundamentally incompatible with divine love, period. And this is exactly what systemic justice means. It's recognizing that injustice isn't just about bad individual behavior. It's about harms woven into the very structures and institutions of a society. If love is real, it cannot be separated from systemic justice. A love that disrupts will overturn tables. It will challenge kings, nations, and communities. It forces us to ask really hard questions about how our society is built and, more importantly, who it's leaving behind. Let's transition into section 3, Jesus and the Kingdom Agenda. Jesus is the ultimate convergence of this entire narrative. He is the absolute embodiment of everything those ancient prophets longed for. He doesn't just preach about justice, he lives out its rhythmic cadence every single day, and ultimately, he dies for it. Look at his mission. He heals the sick, restoring physical brokenness. He restores the outcast, bringing the marginalized right back into the community. He lifts up the poor, giving them their dignity back. He challenges the exact same religious hypocrisy that Isaiah warned about. And finally, he confronts unjust power head-on. Now, it is so easy today to confuse this ancient prophetic role with modern political activism. We often fall into the trap of viewing justice solely through the lens of human power struggles, elections, or earthly factions. But what Jesus establishes is a kingdom agenda. This isn't rooted in human politics. It's the natural overflow of divine love where justice and mercy finally embrace. It completely supersedes any human political agenda. All right, our final section, the fierce call to day. So how do we actually translate all of this into our modern communities? Well, pursuing justice isn't optional. It is the absolute evidence of a heart aligned with God. It starts with your personal daily habits to identify local injustices. To get there, you can look at 3 concrete examples of advocacy. First, you need to audit your own community. Who is currently unseen or struggling to access basic needs? Second, truly listen to marginalized voices without getting defensive. And third, once you identify those gaps, you take concrete action. You stand with the unheard, you challenge unequal systems, and you move way beyond simple charity toward actual structural transformation. You must utterly refuse to be silent. I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. When dignity is restored and the oppressed are defended, the world finally gets to see the true love of God. So perhaps in your own reflection time, or when you're sitting with your small groups, ask yourselves these 3 questions. 1. Is your love safely sentimental, or is it public and fierce? 2. Are you actively finding ways to stand with the unheard in your local community? And 3. Is your compassion courageous enough to truly be justice in motion? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Let your faith be public, let your kindness be bold, and always remember, true love is justice in motion.